What's up, guys? That's my unemotional, stoic face. It's an expression I tend to use quite a lot. And I wanted to talk about being emotional and expressing emotion, especially in the context, particularly in the context of being a man, and in the context of the modern world where we're increasingly finding people telling us men to express ourselves more, to be willing to be emotional. And this is usually advice coming from the direction of women or psychologists and therapists, sort of a new wave of modern therapy practices that want men to express their emotions and release what looks like bottled, kept in emotion. So it's well-meaning. There's a good intention behind why people would say that men need to express themselves more and show emotion, because if you bottle it in too much, then there's this kind of at least perception in our minds that it's not a good thing and that it's kind of making us ill from the inside, that kind of thing. I'm going to argue in this video that we want to be very, very sparing as men with being emotional and showing our emotions, expressing our emotions. I want to quickly cover what I mean by being emotional as well, what I'm referring to in this video. What do I mean by emotional? Well, I'm not talking about the positive end of the spectrum in the sense of when you're expressive and happy and cheerful. That's a different sort of emotional. That's more a case of expressing your innate joy that we already possess, that is there when we're not clouded over by dark and dismal thoughts. I'm talking about the other end of the spectrum that is affected by dark and dismal thoughts. The end of the spectrum of negative emotion. Anything that shows up as a negative emotion that you want to express: crying, frustration, annoyance, anger, fear, jealousy, rage. That's the kind of emotional. This includes crying as well. That you want to be limiting, and you want to be expressing less. So I'm here to tell you to not let it all out. I'm telling you to keep it on the down low. But I'll explain more about what I mean by this and how it can be a healthy way of living as opposed to what looks like for many a suppressive and not very healthy way to live. Now, it can be when men show their emotions. They might have a moment of crying or whatever it is, used sparingly in moments that warrant it, when the moment is particularly difficult for us, the guy, then it can be a good thing. It can be, there's something appealing about when a man is willing to be vulnerable enough to cry, either with himself or in front of other people. And it's appealing because those tend to be moments, unless he's overdoing it, when the moment truly warrants the stress of whatever the guy's feeling. There's a realness to it. There's an authenticity to it, and that used sparingly is okay. You could argue that it's a very masculine thing to be willing to express yourself when the moment warrants it, when the moment is particularly difficult. If we're talking about grief or that kind of thing, that can be absolutely fine as a way to sort of process that struggle. Just sort of thinking back to TV series that I've been watching alone, when they send 10 guys out into remote locations to survive by themselves. There's a lot of instances of guys breaking down and crying because it's such a difficult situation. They've got bears chasing them and they miss their families and that kind of stuff. And to see a bit of that is used sparingly is okay. I'm talking about overly being emotional, overdoing the emotions, and why you should not listen to people who tell you to be more emotional. The reason I say this is because, first of all, and this should come as pretty obvious to many, you're not going to be respected by most people, by everyone really. I mean, even people who say that they find it attractive and who say that they like it, they like seeing it in a man, it's not an attractive, it's not a respect garnering thing. People look up to men, people expect men to have their shit under control, and they are able to manage the situation, and they are a stoic stake in the ground, able to assess the situation and not panic and not weaken themselves by allowing themselves to be clouded by fears and stresses, and that's a weak position to be in, and people will find it difficult to respect you. If you're a father figure or you're a leader in a situation, you don't want to be the guy who's overly emotional. And this is, this will come as obvious to many. It's a gut instinct that we have. If we see a man who we expect to be able to control himself, unable to control himself, whether it be through a bout of anger, rage, or everything else, it's not appealing. So this is going to push people away from you in a very natural sense. People expect men to step up and control themselves. So there's that. But what I really wanted to get to the heart of was what we're looking at when we're talking about emotions, particularly negative emotions. What are they? And do we need to express them? Is there a kind of scientific, natural requirement of us to be more emotional? Well, when you look at what the nature of emotion is, there's an argument that goes against that, which is that emotion is basically the other side of a two-sided coin, whereby on the other side of that coin is thought. And the thoughts that come into our minds will be reflected in how we feel. So we might have a thought that comes to mind that's presenting or projecting jealousy, or it's creating a sense of jealousy when looking at your partner with another guy, for example. You might have a thought that is very judgmental of that situation, that comes up as a sort of feeling of jealousy. And in that instance of thinking about how much you hate this guy and how much you're judging the situation as bad and judging yourself as bad, for example, all of these thoughts are going to correspond to a direct feeling in your body. Your thoughts dictate your emotions. Your thoughts dictate your feelings. The same goes for thoughts of anger, thoughts of panic, thoughts that lead to anxiety and that kind of stuff. And so when we're talking about emotions and we're talking about people getting emotional, what's happening in that situation? Well, what's happening is that they're looking at their thoughts and they're treating those thoughts as if they're real. They're treating those thoughts as if they are believable things that they should be guided by. It's like, I've got this thought of jealousy about this guy, but all it's really happening is you're thinking about this situation. You're fabricating a judgment. You're fabricating meaning out of essentially a non-definable situation. It might look as though this is bad or this is good or these two are doing bad things or whatever, but you're applying meaning onto everything around you. Everything that we look at, everything that we experience, we are always projecting meaning onto it, and that's the role of our thoughts, one of the roles. So if we're creating fabricated meaning in our own minds of what's happening around us, then to respond emotionally to that false meaning is, what is it? It's difficult to describe, but it's essentially allowing yourself to fall for the trap of your own false thinking, your own fabricated meaning, your own delusion. So for a man to fall into rage or being overly emotional about something, what's happening is that he's just following his own lies, and you're allowing thought to extend itself into an emotional experience that can be prolonged. And if you're allowing an emotional experience to be prolonged, you're just allowing yourself to buy into your thinking for longer. So it's in a sense, you're allowing for the insanity to continue. So when you are being emotional, negatively emotional about something, maybe you're getting into a rage and you just can't stop, and you know, this is why we see shootings and things like that go on and on. It's extended emotion, or you get into a sort of depressive phase post breakup. But when you really think of what a breakup is, it's all meaning attached to an experience that is meaningless. And you have created meaning out of this breakup, and you have created a delusion for yourself that you're now responding to emotionally. So you're kind of emotionally linked to a lie. And the longer this goes on for, the longer you emotionally attach and emotionally express to a lie, the more insanity you have produced in your reality. So for someone to tell you, particularly as men who people respect and admire and look up to for having their stuff together and being unemotional, for someone to tell you to be more emotional is like them saying you should be more insane more of the time, and you should be more out of equilibrium, and you should be more in imbalance. We want you to be more imbalanced and wasting more of your time and more of our time. That's what we need from you. To be a masculine man, you need to be more insane. Could you do that for us, please? Society needs men to be more stupid, more out of control. And it's true, because the longer you kind of keep yourself in an emotional state, whether it's sadness or prolonged grief, prolonged anything, the more you're just sort of wasting your time, and you're actually stressing yourself out more. You're actually doing yourself harm health-wise, because you're allowing your body basically to break down because of the stress that you're kind of feeding through doing more stressful things, being stressed. You don't have to. There's a choice in how we deal with our thoughts. We can intercept, and it's not really an active movement when I'm talking about detaching from the power of thought. It's more of a letting go movement. And so what men really need to learn, and this equates very closely, I believe, to what a true masculine man is, and how a masculine man manifests himself, is he is able to see through thought, and by making thought transparent and non-meaningful. I'm making up loads of words today. He has the power. He is able to tap into his real, true creative force, his universal, innate intelligence that is fed through all things. This is me getting spiritual and real now, but it's really true. Thought is just a lie. Thought is a facade that we sometimes use as a tool, and an imaginative tool, but we often use it to buy into insanity and causing ourselves stress and harm, and losing the respect of the people around us. It's not a good thing. So you're not gonna break if you don't express yourself with the negative emotions. You don't need to. You can simply let go of all of that clown thinking, and as soon as you let go, that is the healing. That is you returning to your relaxed, calm state. That is where you need to be. You don't need to spend time and energy and seized upness in the stress of your own thinking. You can let go of all of that. Anyway, I realise we're going on quite a bit here, so I'm gonna end that here, guys. If you've got any comments to add to this, really appreciate your words below, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.